Hey, Dr. Reddick here. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for allowing me to do the 2D analysis as well as 3D analysis on you. And we'll get started. All right, so first thing we look for is just your negative move. That means movement away from the pitcher. We want to make sure you don't have too much sway there. So what we do is we draw a line on the outside part of your foot straight up. And what we don't want is that knee to go past that line. And so you do pretty good there, so no evidence of a sway. Next thing we do is we look for loss of posture. So as we get you in that negative move going forward, we want you in an attacking position to the ball. And so, which way is this? 88 that way? So kind of, I'm gonna actually move this a little bit. And so you're a little bit tilting away. Then as we have you go through, so we want you really kind of leaning forward, attacking the ball, going forward. As I get you into toe touch, you can see still a little lean backwards. And then once you get to heel plant, that's when we want that angle. But leading up to it, we actually want kind of this, and then that. I'm exaggerating here, but as you can see, we want that upper body a little bit more in an attacking position. And so we'll say there is a loss of posture there, and that's important because it can throw off your sequencing. Next thing we look for is dead hands. Basically see if you're moving your hands away from your body. So here, I'm gonna kind of start it here, because once you're square, what we'll do is move those hands to the nose. And then once you get to the toe touch position, teasing me there, where's that toe touch? There you go. And then we measure hands to your nose again. And then we kind of say, hey, are those any different? And I would say just slightly. You do separate ever so slightly, but I'm still going to call it dead hands. All right. Only because I would like to see a little bit more separation. That's important in creating elasticity, that stretch. It causes what we call a stretch cycle, and it generates power, and you're able to transfer that power into your swing and through the ball. Next thing we look for is loss of base. And so key thing I want to see is this knee pointing out, preferably over the facing same direction as the toe during toe touch. Doing pretty good. This one's nice and straight. This one's going forward. Looks like your heel is back. So no evidence of loss of base. Next thing we look for is hanging back. And so what we do is that negative move through contact. And so here what we do is we draw a line on your back foot. And we don't want to see any of your foot kind of cross the line. You can touch it, but not cross it at the point of contact, and you actually slide your foot forward. So no evidence of hanging back, so it's like you're getting pretty good weight shift. Next thing we look for is that gate swing. We don't want that elbow to get caught on the hip. And so we have you go through, and so here we started here. We say 1, 2, starting to come off. So you are no signs of a gate swing. Sometimes when that elbow gets caught, it means you're no longer coiling or uncoiling, rotating. And so if it goes kind of 2, 3 frames, 3 for sure. But thanks for wearing those Adidas shorts, because it makes it a lot easier to see. And so no evidence of a gate swing there. All right, next thing we look for is when you go to toe touch position, is there a flying elbow? And ever so slightly, so if we call that toe touch, I think we're seeing a little bit of your elbow there. Let me see, elbow, 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 elbow. All right, so those elbows should be in alignment with the hands or inside the hands at this point. And so you do have a bit of a flying elbow. And the reason that's important because sometimes it can lead to a push. So if we have you go and move your hands forward a little bit, it does look like that elbow is still, so here it's in alignment, as you can see. But as we get past the shoulders ever so slightly, you're kind of, elbow is still out there. Let me look at your movement screen. You did have some tightness in your shoulders, and you also had some thoracic stuff, tightness going on, so that could be contributing to that, your elbow flying out. So it'd be real important to do those exercises, particularly the ones that involve the shoulder, to see if we can get a little bit more range of motion. So even though we're referring to the elbow, some of the issues may be coming from your shoulder and also your tightness within your thoracic, your trunk area. And so you're just not able to fully separate and move those body parts. And so those corrective exercises would be very helpful for you, all right? So we said flying elbow, you are pushing rather than whipping, meaning that when you get to this point here, that elbow is still flying out. So rather than whipping the hands through, you're pushing them through. Dumping the barrel at toe touch, you're not doing that. The hands are behind the barrel. Other piece we look for is drifting. So we will take you to the heel plant position. And then I'm going to draw a line roughly here. I just want to make sure you rotate around that line. Doing great. So no evidence of drifting at all. Let me do one quick double check. Okay, I think I got it all. Now I'm going to switch you over to Shimon. Rear view. And two things we look for here is one, loss of space. So let me get you going in your positive move. So I'm going to start you there and draw a line on the rear. Let me zoom in a little bit. And then for the most part, we don't want you coming off that line in between positive movement and contacts. Let me redraw my line. There we go. All right, so here. And so we don't want you going closer to the base with your hips. So for instance, if you were to get a inside pitch, because you're moving your body forward, you give your hands less space to adjust there, all right? And a lot of this too has to deal with pelvic rotation. And so that's when two of the exercises actually deal with pelvic rotation. So be sure to do that because this will help with that loss of space characteristic there. Other thing we look for is casting of the hands. So when you get to the toe touch position, we want to make sure that lead hand is inside the elbow. And then even at heel plant, we want that lead hand inside the elbow. So good job, you're not throwing your hands out of there. All right. And so we're going to switch over to the 3D analysis. And here, what did I say your X factor was? We look for X factor, just how much coil that you have with your upper body and your lower body. So we're going to say roughly 11 to 42. So you have X factor of 31, which is ideally range 25 to 35. So you are getting a coil, but what's happening here on this top part is your sequencing is off. And so when we look here, so we have the green, orange, and red. So the red is your arm. The green is your trunk or your shoulder. And then the pelvis is in the orange. And so when these peak up here, like in this range, what we want to see is the orange actually peak first. then the green, then the red. And what that means is there's an appropriate transfer of power at that point, and you're also sequencing properly. And so when we look at yours, you're getting fair velocity, actually getting pretty good velocity, but ideally between the red and the green, we actually want to see a little bit more separation between those two peaks. Between the green and the orange, not so much, but between the red and the green, definitely more. And so the key here is your sequencing is backwards, meaning that your arms are going first, then your trunk, then your hips. And what we would like for you to do is fire from those hips, which provides an appropriate transfer to your trunk, which provides appropriate transfer to your arm. So there is some power leakage here, and the arms are leading the way when it should be your hips leading the way there in the orange. All right. And so I suspect that some of this is related to your physical screen, in which we do have to work on your hip rotation as well as your trunk rotation, which is kind of interesting because you do have a decent coil, but it's kind of like almost a forced coil, like you're really having to push to get into that position, but then your body's not appropriately responding, getting out of it. And so there's some areas of tightness, mobility that we can address, but once we address that, I think you'll be able to generate a good amount of power there. All right. Thank you, and we'll be talking soon. Bye-bye.